Robert Hallmark, Roberthalmark.
Great. And what were you doing during the 1964 flood?
I was had the Trinidad Pier and also crab fished.
And how old were you?
34.
Okay. And so when you had the pier, what did that mean? What was your role with the pier?
Well, we had the pier and we received crabs from the fishermen. It was crab season at that time. And I also crab fished too myself.
So when you, did you go out crab fishing every day during that time period?
Well, not every day because quite often it was rough. So you didn't get out every day, but whenever the weather was good, we tried to get out.
And what was the main species? What were the main species that were caught kind of during that era of 1964? Not necessarily December, but what sorts of fish did fishermen fish for?
Well, there was salmon fishing. That was a big thing in the summer, and bottom fishing too. That were the main things then. Of course, it was crab season in the regular wintertime.
Okay. And how did the crab get to market? How did it get to the places where it needed to go? When the fishermen brought it in, they weren't just bringing it in for people who ate it in Eureka.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So how did the crab, what happened to the crab that was caught? Where did it end up going, north and south? And who ended up buying the crab?
Well, Eureka fisheries were the main one in Trinidad to buy at that time. And they sent trucks up to take our crabs to Eureka. But of course, with the floods, they had difficulties getting down to the Bay Area where most of the crabs were sold.
And how did fishermen adapt to that? Did they just quit fishing during that time period?
Well, we were on limits, so there was a certain amount of crab that they'd allow us to bring in. But they did freeze them in Eureka and take care of them that way to a degree. But we were limited as to the amount. And also we had trouble with losing all the crab pots that we did from the logs and the debris dragging our crab gear away from the crab grounds.
So it's hard to imagine that way out where you had your crab pot set that there was debris all the way out there?
Yes, there was, and there'd be big rip tides that would, the logs and debris of all sorts, trees, would go a long string. And when it did that, well, you might have to go a couple of miles to get around that to where you could get to what crab pots were left.
Wow, that's a lot of debris way out there.
Yes, it kind of stayed in contained areas pretty much.
And what would happen to your crab pots? They get tangled in there?
Yes, especially with trees. The limbs, the ropes and the buoys would tangle up with that, and the currents would drag them off and out to deeper water than we had lines on them.
And how many crab pots might you lose?
Well, at that time I was probably running a couple of hundred, and I lost about half of that. Most of the fishermen lost quite a few, except for some that fished off the big lagoons. They didn't lose many there, but from big lagoon south, there was quite a loss.
It seems like it was an expensive thing to lose half your gear.
It sure was. And it was especially bad because in '59 we lost almost all our gear. I had one crab pot left after a monster storm we had then, and we were just recovering at that time.
Was that 59 or 55? Because we heard there was a big flood in '55, but it must have been a storm.
No, there was a big flood, but the huge storm monstrous storm, a lot bigger than the ones that were at 64 or 55.
And tell me about what happened to the shellfish around Little River.
Well, from Little River up to the bay in Trinidad, all the shellfish, nearly all the abalone, rock scallops, sea urchins, all of those were pretty well wiped out. And it was really a shame because we had some of the biggest abalone on the west coast. And there were a lot of them in the harbor, but it wiped them all out.
And did you say sea urchins too?
Yes. Yes, we had a lot of the large sea urchins, and it wiped them out. Some of the smaller ones that lived right up near the surface survived, a few of them, but big majority of the shellfish was lost.
Yeah, did you fish for sea urchin and have a market for it?
No, we didn't do that, but people came, especially the Italians, really enjoyed them, and so they came down and scraped them off of docks or dove for them.
Huh. What do you know? And then tell me about the skiffs, renting the skiffs.
Well, we rented skiffs in the summertime, but during the storm, Dave Zebo, a highway patrolman here out of Trinidad area, borrowed some of our skiffs and motors to go across the Klamath.
That's right, because the Klamath Bridge was out.
Right.
Yeah. And so what did he, just ferrying equipment over, or what do you suppose he was using them for?
Well, I don't know entirely what they used them for because I was still busy here in Trinidad, but I knew that they transported people back and forth and some supplies, I don't know what.
And let's see. So what was the impact to the pier itself? Did you have much of a impact there?
Well, in the harbor itself, it wasn't too bad. We did lose one piling from a big log that came in and knocked it out. But other than that, no boats were lost, or really not much was injured or hurt in the harbor itself.
Let's see. Any questions, you guys?
Are there any other stories you'd like to share that you've heard from other fishermen, or anything else that we haven't brought up?
Not really that I can think of offhand.
That's always the problem when you got camera looking at you.
Two of them.
Yeah, mine kind of goes blank there.
Yeah, you mentioned, was it Dave Zebo that borrowed those boats?
Right.
I thought I read that name, Dave Zebo. I thought he was in charge of the McKinleyville Airport.
Right.
Oh, he was?
Right.
I thought you just called him a highway patrolman.
Well, at that time, he was highway patrol.
Oh.
He had been a highway patrolman for years, and then he went to the airport.
Okay, so, yeah, interesting. I just recognize
Now,
the name.
I might be wrong on that, though, but I know he was very active in getting the skiffs and handling them. He might have been at the airport at that time, but I don't think so. I think he was still a highway patrolman.
Okay. Well, I think you answered all my questions. Do you remember anything about any of the debris, people trying to burn it on the beach and the air quality and that sort of thing? Do you remember seeing anything like that?
No, it would have been hard to do, to burn it in the wintertime, and people didn't generally do that. They might come down on the Luncher Beach and take a log or two or some wood that came in there for firewood, but that would be basically it. Did have a lot of the cows and different things that came in on the beach. But there's not very good ways of burying them.
That must have gotten stinky.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Hey, do you remember any of the military aircraft flying around? Did you see many helicopters?
There were, I remember seeing some planes and helicopters, but not that many.
Yes.
But it might have been because I was kind of busy myself.
So how do you remember when you were able to start transporting seafood out of Humboldt County? How long did that last that you weren't able to do that?
I don't remember the exact amount of time it was, but it was probably a couple of weeks anyway.
That seems like it must have had a real big impact on the fishermen.
Well, it did, and the other businesses that were related to the fishing industry.
Okay. Well, I think we're good. Do you want to do 30-second industry? And so when you would go out in your boat, how big was your boat?
Well, at that time, I had a 29-footer.
And what was she called?
The Bobby Joe.
Okay. And when you went out for crab and you had a full load of crab, how much crab would that boat hold?
Well, that boat would only hold probably, 5,000 or 6,000 pounds maximum.
You say
But-
that like that's not much.
No, nowadays they pack quite a bit more.
Okay. So when you brought those in, how did you keep that fresh to get it to market? How did you keep the crab alive? Because you don't want them to die, right, before they go to market?
Right. We'd bring the crab in to the dock and sell them there if we could, but quite often we were on limits and we would put what we call live boxes. That we'd put them in about 300 pounds of crab in those and put a lid on them and float them in the bay until needed.
Okay. I find that so fascinating because Doug told me about that and I never realized that's how you kept them alive and fresh.
We also had some tanks up on the dock too that we kept the water and air circulating too, and kept some that way, but it was much more practical to leave them in the ocean.
Were there a lot of people who were out crab fishing out of Trinidad Harbor during '64, do you think?
I would imagine just around 14, 15 boats. I can't remember exactly.
Do you have any ideas of, like, if we had a flood of that magnitude today, how things might be different?
Well, we have better boats, better moorings, so the chances of survival would be better for the boats, although, as I said, we didn't lose any at that time. Other storms we lost up, and in other years, up to half the boats.
We heard that Crescent City had a lot of debris that came into the harbor there. Did you know anybody or hear anything about that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And how about Eureka? Do you know anything about how it fared during the flood?
I think they fared fairly well anyway, as far as I know.
Probably if you weren't out in the debris that was kind of coming in, because I've heard that, out there a ways there was some debris.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're good. Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, get out of your hair so you can enjoy your guests who are coming.
Well, they won't be here until 6, I think, or around that time.
I'm going to get your microphone off you first before you
Oh.